I was just about to step out the door when my phone buzzed. A new message lit up the screen, 4 simple words from my attorney: call me immediately. I froze where I stood, clutching my purse in one hand and my keys in the other. At 67, I thought I had seen enough of life's surprises to take anything in stride. But what I learned in the moments that followed would shatter not only my peace, but the marriage my son believed was unshakable. My name is Helen Carter, and I've been a widow for nearly 15 years. I live alone now in a modest little apartment with yellow painted walls I chose in a hopeful attempt to brighten my days. Just 6 months earlier, I sold the house where I'd lived for 37 years, the home where I raised my son Andrew and nursed my husband through his final illness. Letting it go was one of the hardest choices of my life. Still, when Andrew and his bride Melissa asked me to contribute to their dream wedding, I didn't hesitate. Melissa had seemed like such a blessing. A pediatric nurse with a warm smile and gentle hands, she embraced me as if I were her own mother. She called me Mom Carter with such affection that my heart swelled each time. After years of loneliness, I thought I had gained not just a daughter-in-law, but a daughter. So when they told me the wedding would cost more than they had planned, I reached into my future. I sold the house, handed over $50,000, and told myself it was worth it. I would never regret investing in my son's happiness, or so I believed. That Tuesday afternoon, I was smoothing out my navy blue dress, the one Andrew always said made me look distinguished, when Robert, my attorney of 15 years, sent that urgent text. Robert was not a man to exaggerate. Since my husband's passing, he had managed every legal and financial matter for me, and never once had he sent a message like this. My heart began to hammer. I called immediately. "Helen," he said, his voice tight. "I need you to sit down." I lowered myself onto the edge of my bed dress, still draped across my lap. "What is it? Is something wrong with my will?" "No," he said gravely. "This is about Melissa." My breath caught. Melissa, my daughter-in-law. What about her? She isn't who she claims to be. Helen, there are no records of her working at the hospital. The identity she's been using isn't real. The words felt like smoke seeping into the room, invisible but suffocating. My hands trembled as the dress slipped to the floor. I stared at the cheerful yellow walls I'd painted, and for the first time they looked harsh, almost mocking. In that moment, it hit me in trying to give my son everything I may have destroyed both of us. I drove to Andrew's house with my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly that my knuckles turned white. Fear and anger pulsed through me in equal measure. Fear for my son's future, anger at myself for being so easily convinced to hand over nearly everything I had. The closer I got to his quiet suburban street, the more my chest ached. I had imagined this house would be a symbol of Andrew's new beginning, a place full of laughter and love. Instead, it was about to become the stage for a reckoning. The house itself looked perfect in the fading light, new siding, manicured lawn, the kind of tasteful landscaping you'd see in a magazine spread. But I couldn't help thinking so much of this was built on my sacrifice. Without my money, there would have been no wedding, no down payment. I pulled into the driveway and sat for a moment watching through the window as Andrew moved around the kitchen, laughing at something Melissa said. From the outside, they looked like the model of domestic happiness, but now I knew that picture was cracked. When Melissa opened the door, she wore an apron over her jeans, smiling warmly. "Mom Carter, come in. Dinner's almost ready," she said, as if everything in her world was perfectly in order. Andrew appeared behind her, his familiar broad grin lighting up his face. For a fleeting second, I wondered if Robert had been wrong, if maybe this was all some mistake. But as I stepped inside, the unease settled back into me. It struck me how much the house bore no resemblance to Andrew's life before Melissa. Not one of his college football trophies, not the old guitar he used to play, not even the antique clock his father left him. Every wall, every piece of furniture reflected Melissa's taste, a lone chic, polished, utterly impersonal. It was as though Andrew himself had been erased. I waited until Melissa ducked back into the kitchen, then touched Andrew's arm. "Honey, can we talk for a minute?" He hesitated, then led me down the hall into his office, the only room where I could still see him, shelves of his books, his computer, the diploma from graduate school. He sank into his chair, looking more weary than I had realized. I didn't soften my words. "Andrew, how much do you really know about your wife's past?" He exhaled sharply, and in that sound was something that broke my heart relief, as though he had been waiting for someone to ask. Not much, he admitted. She told me she grew up in Denver, that her parents died in a car accident, that she put herself through nursing school. But I've never seen pictures. She doesn't talk about childhood friends. There's nothing solid. I pulled out my phone and showed him Robert's text. As his eyes scanned the words, the color drained from his face. He shook his head slowly, the certainty slipping out of him like sand through an open hand. That warm family dinner I'd expected was gone. The house no longer felt like a home. It felt like a crime scene, and the investigation had just begun. We returned to the dining room where Melissa had set the table with perfect precision. White plates, cloth napkins, fresh flowers in a vase I recognized as my own wedding gift. She moved gracefully, her smile just as warm as ever. For a moment, I almost doubted myself again. Could Robert and his investigator have been wrong? Could my son's wife truly be the woman she claimed? But the doubt didn't last long. I looked straight at her and asked, keeping my voice calm, "Melissa, there's something I've been wondering. I gave you and Andrew $50,000 from the sale of my house. You told me the wedding cost $47,000. What happened to the other $15,000? The air seemed to freeze. Andrew's fork clinked against his plate as he looked up sharply. Melissa's smile flickered. "There were extra expenses," she said quickly. "The honeymoon. Some house repairs my student loan payments. Student loans." Andrew interrupted, his brow furrowing. "You told the bank you had no debt when we applied for the mortgage." For the first time, Melissa faltered. I saw a flash of panic cross her face before she forced a nervous laugh. "I didn't want you to worry. I paid them off after we married." Andrew shook his head slowly. "That doesn't make sense, Melissa. We share accounts. I've never seen a single payment." Her mask slipped further, her cheeks tightening. "I don't have to explain every detail to you," she snapped, pushing back her chair. "Let me get dessert." She swept into the kitchen, her movement stiff and sharp. Minutes passed. Too many minutes. The sound of cabinets opening, water running, and then silence. I looked at Andrew, my stomach turning cold. "Where does she keep her purse?" "On the counter by the back door," he said, already standing. We hurried down the hall. The kitchen was empty. The back door stood ajar, curtains fluttering in the breeze. "Her purse is gone," Andrew whispered, his voice hollow. But her phone was still sitting on the table screen, dark. I picked it up, half expecting it to be locked, but it wasn't. That was the moment everything unraveled. The text messages told the truth we had dreaded. To someone named Marcus. "The old lady is getting suspicious. How much longer do I have to keep this up? Need extraction plan now." Andrew read over my shoulder, his face pale. She was planning to leave. "Yes," I said softly, but not until she took everything she could. The investigator's report confirmed what the phone had already revealed. Melissa wasn't Melissa at all. Her real name was Catherine Blake. She had been married before twice, and both marriages ended the same way: drained bank accounts, vanished assets, a disappearing bride. She carried multiple aliases, slipping from one life to another like a professional actress. Robert arranged a meeting with the police the next day. Their faces were grim as they laid out the pattern. Catherine had at least 17 confirmed victims across several states, mostly widowed or recently divorced men who thought they'd found love late in life. Collectively, she had stolen more than $2 million. The officer looked me straight in the eye. "Mrs. Carter, your son wasn't her main target. You were. She stayed longer this time because she discovered your savings. She was working to gain access." The words pierced me. My son's marriage was nothing more than a stepping stone, and I, the woman who gave up her house to help, was the real prize. My blood went cold. It wasn't just Andrew she had nearly destroyed. It was me. The police moved quickly once they pieced together the truth. Their plan was simple, but dangerous. Use me as bait. Catherine had run, but her history showed she rarely walked away from unfinished business, especially when money was still on the table. She knew I had more savings, and they believed she would come back for it. Andrew was horrified. "Absolutely not, Mom," he said, his voice sharp with panic. "You're not putting yourself in her path again. She's dangerous." I reached for his hand, steadying him the way I had when he was a boy. "Honey, she's been doing this for years. If we don't stop her now, she'll just move on to someone else's family. I can handle this." My words surprised even me with their calm. Maybe it was the weight of everything I had already lost. Maybe it was the fire of wanting to protect others. Either way, I knew I had to go through with it. With guidance from the detectives, I reached out to Catherine. I crafted a message full of sympathy and regret, pretending to believe she'd left because of some misunderstanding with Andrew. I said I wanted to help mend things, that I was worried about my son's happiness. As predicted, she responded quickly. Her reply was tearful, apologetic, desperate. She suggested we meet at a cafe downtown. That afternoon, my heart pounded as I slid into a small booth by the window. The cafe bustled with the sound of steaming milk and clinking cups, but to me, it felt like a stage. I knew officers were stationed discreetly nearby, yet I felt exposed, as if every eye could see the fear inside me. At exactly 2 o'clock, she walked in. Catherine looked different. Hair darker, makeup, lighter clothes chosen to make her appear fragile. She spotted me, pasted on a trembling smile, and hurried over. "Mom Carter," she whispered as if the name still held power. "Thank you for seeing me. I've been so scared." She launched into her performance immediately. She painted Andrew as controlling, paranoid, a husband who had suddenly turned on her. Her voice cracked at all the right places, and tears glistened on her lashes. If I hadn't known the truth, I might have believed her. But I did know. So I leaned in gently and asked, "What about the money transfers, Catherine?" The $15,000 that disappeared. Her expression froze for a split second before she caught herself dabbing at her eyes. "That's just another one of Andrew's accusations," she murmured. But her tone had changed. The sweetness faltered. I pressed further. "And the names? The other lives you've lived. Christine, Carol. Do you remember them?" The mask shattered. The tears dried up instantly, her eyes turning cold and sharp. She leaned forward, her voice low and venomous. "You think you're clever, don't you? You have no idea what you're dealing with. That money is gone and there's nothing you can do." I didn't flinch. I met her gaze and said clearly and steadily, "I know everything." That was the signal. Within seconds, Detective Morrison appeared beside our table, his badge flashing. 2 more officers blocked the exits. "Catherine Blake," he announced, "you are under arrest for fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy to commit financial elder abuse." She didn't resist, but as the handcuffs clicked around her wrists, she turned her head toward me. Her smile was gone, replaced by pure hatred. "This isn't over," she hissed. I watched as they led her away, and for the first time in months, I felt something break free inside me. Not fear, not grief, relief. I had been living under a shadow, but now finally the light was returning. 6 months have passed since that day in the cafe, and life looks very different now. Andrew is slowly finding his footing again. The weight on his shoulders has lifted, and though the scars of betrayal remain, I see glimpses of the son I used to know, lighter, freer, more himself. As for me, I bought a smaller house, one chosen for no one's approval, but my own. It isn't grand, but it's mine. After years of living for others, I've finally reclaimed what independence feels like. The case against Catherine is still winding its way through the courts. The authorities believe they will recover some of the money she stole, though the truth is, I no longer measure my life by those dollars. What I gained back is worth far more: my confidence, my instincts, and the reminder that even at 67, I am capable of protecting myself and the people I love. If you take anything from my story, let it be this: family does not mean someone has the right to use you. Setting boundaries is not selfish. It is an act of self-respect. Age does not make you weak or naive. You have every right to safeguard your assets and your peace of mind. And most importantly, do not let the longing for love or companionship blind you to the red flags standing right in front of you. I tell this story not just for myself, but for every woman who has ever felt pressured, dismissed, or taken advantage of. You are not alone, and you are not powerless. Thank you for listening to my journey. If you've ever faced betrayal or felt used in a relationship or within your own family, I invite you to share your experience in the comments. And if this story resonated with you, please follow Real Her Stories like this video and share it so that other women will know they don't have to face these battles in silence. We all deserve respect. We all deserve love.